More activities from the Bank of Industry's headquarters in Lagos. We now speak to the General Manager Operations, and he tells us apart from all these things that we have seen the bank doing, the bank also deals with large enterprises. He updates us on the activities of the bank with the large enterprises.
Well, it is true that based on the paradigm shift, focus has been much more on the micro, small and medium enterprises. Because, like you are aware, this is what is generally classified as the engine of growth in every economy. This is the sector where you have a preponderance of players within the economy. Yes, that is true. But at the same time also, we are still doing a reasonable number of large, credits. And the way it is done, if you recall, there have been some other interventions. Talking about the cotton, textile and garment funding, which is about 100 billion. We have used that to a large extent to revamp a lot of big textile companies. A lot of them also involve engineers. So a lot of them belong to the large enterprises group. So we have done that. We are also involved in financing a lot of corporate, fairly big companies that have linkage or a kind of a synergy with the small and medium enterprises. So essentially what they do is that they utilize most of what those small and medium enterprises are producing as their input. So what we try to encourage now is to ensure that there's a synergy between the large projects and the relatively small and medium enterprises.
We know when it comes to the SMEs, some of the considerations are that they should promote or they should use more raw materials from Nigeria and all that, to promote our own thing here. What about in the case of large enterprises? What are some of those things you look out for, before you support some of these companies?
Yes, for the large enterprises, like Riley said, yes, in terms of the capitalization, is much. We'll talk about maybe loans from about maybe 300 million, 500 million and above. Okay, we'll look at them as being fairly large. And apart from that, we also emphasize the fact that there must be reasonable local content. Okay, at least a good number of them also must be able to source their raw materials, locally. And then apart from that, in terms of the basic requirements, in terms of documentation, they are basically the same for both SMEs and the large enterprises. In terms of the basic documentation requirement. But what differentiates the two basically, is the total capitalization and then the number of employment, that they are capable of, generating.
What sectors of the industry, when we're talking about large enterprises, what sectors actually gets the attention of the Bank of Industry? Do you really support? Do you have a passion for?
Well, in the large enterprises group within Bank of Industry, we focus a lot on agribusiness. Okay, we have agribusiness, and under that same agribusiness now, we also look at the cotton, textile, and garment value chain. Apart from the ordinary agribusinesses generally, involving a lot of processing of various agricultural products. So we are doing that a lot. And secondly, apart from that, we are also heavily involved in what they call the chemical and pharmaceutical sector. If you look at any of the major pharmaceutical companies today in Nigeria, a lot of them will have investments, in them, because there is this need to comply, with the new WHO requirements in terms of the standard and quality of their products. So we have supported a reasonable number of them to attain that standard. Apart from that, we also have a lot of exposure in terms of solid mineral processing. Okay, and apart from that, we also get involved in ICT, which are fairly big tickets. And under that also, we are what they call the NAC scheme. That's the National Automobile Council. We are supporting a lot of initiative that can be producing local components of both motorcycles and motor vehicles. Like we are aware, we've supported even vehicle assembly plants, and which they are doing now. One of the major ones of them is Innocence, which is heavily involved in assembling local vehicles, So those are the major sector, of course. Lest I forget, and very important too, is in the area of entertainment. That's the creative industry. There also we are playing. We've sponsored a reasonable number of films, like we are aware. We have also been involved in building cinema outlets to contribute our quota to the distribution, which has been a major problem for most players in the film industry. So basically within the large enterprises group, we have the following sectors, sectoral structure. We have the agribusiness, okay, we have the cotton, textile and garment division, and of course we have the chemical and pharmaceutical division. We have what they call the solid minerals engineering and technology division, and we are also playing infrastructure. But we are now supporting power projects, particularly captive power projects. We are supporting some of them, and in fact recently we financed 2 projects for the local production of electricity meters, so that we can be part of solving the distribution problem within the electricity sector. And like I said, we have what they call the gender, entertainment and the special products division within the large enterprises group.
You mentioned the power projects that the Bank of Industry is now working in that line, and we know once you mention power, every business person in Nigeria, they just that you catch their attention. So how exactly is BOI working to help in providing power in Nigeria?
Well, you will recall that within this same head office operations, we have what they call the Central Bank Intervention Desk, if you recall. And we are currently actively involved in managing the Central Bank Intervention Fund, both for the refinancing and restructuring of loans to manufacturing sector. And then we also have that 300 billion for the power and airline fund. Under that particular fund, we are working with so many of the commercial banks, by either refinancing existing loan they give to power projects or setting up of new power projects. In the process, we observe that for us as Bank of Industry, we play in the manufacturing sector where power is so critical. In fact, power accounts for about 30 to 40% of the overhead. And looking at that, we believe that as Bank of Industry, we need to also support, investment in the power sector. So what we've been doing in the last couple of years, we now set up what we call the Energy and Infrastructure Desk, within the bank, so that we can also support private sector initiative in terms of adding some megawatts, to the power line. And what we've been doing recently is talking about these captive power projects. Our belief is that if we can provide power for a cluster of industry within a particular location, they will not have to depend on the national grid. So that will free more power for some other users that cannot afford or access that. So essentially that's what it's all about. And we are doing this in such that it can also support some of our projects that we have financed, so that they can have relative access to electricity at reasonable cost.
A whole lot is still going on around the Bank of Industry, both in partnership, empowering individual entrepreneurs through trainings or financially, and we will bring you all the stories in subsequent episode of BOI Weekly. Until next time on the program, I'm Amy Thompson.